recording, we're going to be looking at what we do now. Now, this is really exciting, but we're going to take it step by step so that we follow together through all of the identical instructions. So hopefully now you've got your Pico installed in your breadboard, and it should be that when you look at it from a sideways view, you should see that the black bits are pushed all the way down, and you can't see really any of the pins either on that side or round here on this side. So hopefully that's now been pushed in. Now we probably won't take it out again. Actually, this is a nice safe place for the Pico to live. The pins, they are just made of fairly thin metal, and so they do bend. So if you do ever need to take it out, then it is a matter of doing it very, very carefully and just gradually lifting up from each end so it comes up in a nice even manner. Let's now look at the USB connection. Now this is our micro USB. So I've included a cable in the kit. It's just a normal USB cable. I've just given you a short one. You can choose a longer one if you have one at home. The main thing is to insert it the correct way. There's only one way that this will go in. This has got the little pins on the top here. And I'm going to push this in until I hear a click. There was the little click as it went in. And you can see it's not quite fully pushed in there, but that is a full connection. So now I'm ready to plug in the other end. Now, as you can see, this is a normal USB-A. This will go into most devices. It won't connect to your phone, so we will need to find a computer, a laptop that this will fit into. If you do have a Chromebook, do send me a message, because there will be a little way that we can hopefully still use this with a Chromebook, but it's just a little bit more complicated. Now, before we plug it in, my important little mantra for you to know is that if we see a socket like this, or a plug like this, and we see a socket and we think, oh, this plug fits into this socket, unless we know what we're doing, it's pretty important that we don't just plug things in randomly, especially when we're dealing with hardware like this. Now, what you'll find is I am going to invite you to plug it into a USB socket on your laptop. What you will find is that your computer might recognize it, or attempt to recognize it, and actually what it might do is that it might come up with a message saying, oh, is this a USB stick? So from the computer's perspective, it's tried to identify what you've got here. It doesn't know that it's a Raspberry Pi Pico. It's seeing a little bit of memory, which this Pico does have, and it's saying, oh, have you just plugged in a very small USB flash drive into the computer? So if something has come up automatically in your system, we just want to cancel that window and say, yeah, no, it's not a USB. We're not going to use it in that way. What we will do though, so you can cancel or close any pop-up windows that have appeared. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to use Thonny to now control our interaction with the Pico. So now if you load up Thonny, this is what it should look like. Now I appreciate this is probably going to be quite small writing up here for you to see the menu up here, and hopefully if you come down here, you can see that it says local Python 3. Now this is what your Thonny system should do as well, is show you local Python 3. What this means is we could write some Python code and run it on our computer. So I could just do a normal little print statement. So I'm typing one-handed, so I could just say, hello Pico, I'm going to run this code. So here's my little run button in Thonny, the little play button. And what pops up is this window, which is called the shell. And in here you can see what's happening when I'm actually running the code. And the only thing that happens is I print a message to the screen saying, hello Pico. And now it's come back to the prompt here, which means that the program has finished running. So you can use Thonny for any type of programming you like. It doesn't have to be connected to your Raspberry Pi Pico. But if we do want to connect it, we need to come down here to this bottom right hand corner of the screen. And if I click on local Python 3, can you see that there's an option that says install MicroPython? Okay, not CircuitPython, we don't want that. We want to install MicroPython. So if we click on that, then it's going to come up with a window. And in this window, we're going to see the target volume. We don't meddle with that because that is what it's found. The MicroPython family, again, we're not going to change that, but we are going to click on variant. And the option that we're going to choose is the first item in the list under most popular, and it's Raspberry Pi Pico / Pico H. So I'm going to select that one. And as of the date of recording this, the latest version is 1.24.1. So I can now click on install, and that is going to install it for me. And then I'm going to close the window. So now we have installed MicroPython. The next thing for us to do is to come back down to this bottom right hand corner and to click on local Python 3 one more time. And now you should see that the options are, instead of install MicroPython, we now can jump straight to using the MicroPython Raspberry Pi Pico. So now I've switched over onto that, which means that any code I write in here is going to be carried out on the Pico itself. So my code of whatever message, now this is my Pico saying hello to my laptop. There's the other half of the conversation. So now this is actually running on the Pico. So I press the run button up here again, and you can see that I've got a little message here, an MPY soft reboot. This is just the Raspberry Pi Pico getting ready to carry out the code, the program that it has been set to do. So we can just ignore that. That's not an error. But then the main thing that's happening is that we get that print statement being written on in that shell. So now, instead of just doing a simple print statement, we are going to see if we can control one of the inbuilt hardware components, which is a little LED, which is hidden somewhere on the Raspberry Pi Pico board. So if you've got very good eyesight, if you want to get a magnifying glass out, you might want to take a look and see if you can spot it. But for those of you who want to just switch it on to do all the hard work for you, let's write the code. I'm going to use a library called Machine, which someone else has written with a whole load of very useful Python functions in it. And from this library called Machine, I want to import a special function called pin. Now it's very important that everything is in lowercase except a capital P for pin. And this code is case sensitive. That means it is important to use capital letters or lowercase letters as required. So in this library, I've got a pin object, actually is what it is, which will help me to control the hardware component of this little, the LED to start with, but all of the other pins. So I am now going to set the name of mine to be LED. Don't know where the LED is. I know there's one there somewhere. And I know that the pin has got a number. Now you might be able to spot some numbers all the way around the pins on the outside. We've got GP0, GP1, GP2, 3, 4. It goes all the way around. The one of them that is missing, there's a couple of them that are missing, but one of them that's missing is 25. And 25 is connected internally to this onboard LED. Now that's not the only thing I need to tell my Python code. I also need to explain that this pin is an output pin. Now an output pin is one that the microcontroller, the Pico itself, knows it is responsible for setting the value of. If it's an input pin, then maybe the input is coming from a sensor or another device, in which case the MicroPython the code on the Pico is just monitoring or measuring or detecting what is going on that pin. It's not in charge of it. It's not setting the value. It is reading the value. So here what we're explaining is that pin 25 is an output pin. So therefore, this little MicroPython program is in charge of controlling it. So I could just now use an inbuilt function for this LED object called on. So I need to use a full stop, LED, full stop, or dot, on, and then those round brackets that maybe you've seen already in the line before. This now calls a function called on, which hopefully will switch the LED on. So now if I come back to this view where you can see my Pico and my code at the same time, let's run the code and let's see what happens. Did you spot it? Did you see? Here it is. Hopefully yours has worked in the same way. We've got a little LED switching on just up here. Now mine's green. I think yours will be green as well, but do let me know if you've got a different colour. That'd be very exciting. So this little LED has responded to this command. Now let's say I wanted to make it blink on and off, on and off, on and off. I'm going to stop my code to edit it. So I've pressed this stop button here. Now if I were to do LED.off, just like that, let's see what happens. Let's run the code. It has switched off. Brilliant. I'm going to stop my code. It has stopped itself. It's my little habit. I'm just going to click on the stop button. Now I'm going to run the code again. Are we going to see the LED come on, like I've commanded it to in line 3, and then off again in line 4? Watch very carefully. Well, I don't know if you saw the teeniest, tiniest flicker, but it really didn't come on at all. And the problem is, it's happening too quickly. No sooner have we told it to switch on than we're telling it to switch off again. So basically, the little Pico here is saying, well, make up your mind. Which one is it, on or off? And because we've said off as the last thing, that's what's happened. So we need to slow this code down. And we are going to use a special feature from the time library. So from the time library, and I'm putting this at the top next to my other from statement where I'm bringing in a bit of code from another library to help me. I'm going to import a very useful little function called sleep. Now, it's not actually going to sleep as in a human sense. It's still going to be very much awake. It's just going to wait. It's going to wait and count to a certain number, and then it's going to carry on. So between the on and the off, let's put a little sleep just to slow down this code. So when I use the sleep function, it needs some brackets, and I put a number inside here. Let's just put the number 1 and let's see what happens. Let's run this code now. Did you see it? The LED came on and we saw it, and then it switched off. Let's change the number. Let's see what happens there. Let's put it on for 4. Running the code. Did you see that was on for much longer, wasn't it? The number that we put in here is supposed to be roughly the number of seconds that it is on and off. Let's try half a second and let's see what happens there. Okay, that was a nice quick one. Let's do it again for you to see. On and off. There we go. So, although it's not entirely accurate, it is a rough measure of how many seconds it is switching on or off for. So that helps us to control our little LED. And I wonder if you can have a think about your design of an LED. If you were to have a program which was running on your Pico, and you just wanted a little LED just like this one to indicate that, yes, my code is running, everything is functioning perfectly, I'm really happy, it's all going swimmingly. Would you like a flashing LED, or would you like a solid on LED that's just switched on saying, yep, I'm here, I'm running, everything's working? Because as we develop our code and we work on some challenges, you'll get to design your own little Pico LED here, the onboard one, that will just indicate that code is running. So we watch and we wait and we see whether the code that we've written is doing the job that we want it to.